Hi everyone, and welcome to another episode of T-Dog RC. And in this episode we're going to be starting the build of this, which doesn't look very exciting. It's just a brown box, but actually what's inside is a Blob Power 40 by njrmodelling.co.uk. So this is a Balsa aircraft. Should be fairly straightforward to build. It's a pretty simple construction. It's quite small as well. I'm going to be making this one electric, but it's designed for, I think it's like a 15 or 25 size glow engine, but I'm going to be doing mine electric and it will fly on a 3S 2200. So that's going to be good. It's definitely one for just throwing in the car and going for an impromptu flying session. And before we get stuck in, you might notice I'm not in a different workshop, but if you subscribe to my channel, you'll see that I've got some nice new shiny garage doors on the workshop, which is great. I've had these for ages, been meaning to put them on. Finally got rid of that rickety old metal thing, so it just makes it so much nicer to work in here. There's a lot more light, it's warmer because they're properly sealed up and all that sort of stuff. So yeah, I'm really chuffed with that. And of course it means I'm more motivated to come in the workshop and do some more videos and that sort of stuff. So anyway, without further ado, let's have a look what we've got and let's start the build. Right then, I've done an unboxing of this already, so I won't go through everything that's in the box. I have read through the instructions a few times. So that's what it's going to look like. So it's a nice, simple model, nothing complicated at all. Foam wings, which is good. And I've seen a video of this flying on, as I say, 2200 3S, and it goes really well. It's actually quite quick. So yeah, good fun sports model. So it does say to read through the instructions several times before you get started, which I've done. And I suppose what's unusual maybe about this is a lot of the time you start with the fuselage, but on this one you get straight into joining the wing panels. And we've got to cut some ailerons out of the wing panels. So then once we've cut the ailerons off, we've then got to put trailing edges on and leading edges, sand those off. We've got aileron leading edges to put on, so the face of where the ailerons are going to meet the wings. Glue the tips on and sand those down, get them profiled up. Oh yeah, it uses a torque rod for the ailerons, which is, I suppose, kind of an old way of doing it now. Most people would put one in the wing, but I think I'll probably do it as it says in the instructions, because at the end of the day, that's it's a simple model and that should work absolutely fine. And I've got a spare standard size servo, which is what it uses. And then you actually epoxy the wings together, upside down on the bench it says, but don't bandage them. And then once you've done that, you put those to one side and then you can do the fuselage. Now the interesting thing about the fuselage construction is normally, obviously, you would build the fuselage with the formers, etc., but you don't do that with this. Yeah, so you actually fit the fuselage sides over the wings first, I believe, and then you epoxy those into position, and then once you're happy that they're all square and in the right place, you then put the wing bandage on to sort of secure them even more. So kind of the wing, it's not a removable wing, so it's all a one piece model really, and so obviously that's going to make it very strong, I guess, but kind of the wings almost form, you don't need formers because you've got the wings there which the fuselage sides are glued to, and then obviously you have got a former at the front to mount the motor or whatever. Then once you've done that, you move on to the tailplane and fin, which is solid Balsa, so that's fairly straightforward. Get those into place, and then it's basically just, once you've done that, it's a case of covering it. So should be fairly straightforward. Let's have a look where the formers actually are. So there's one at the front, the firewall, and then there's one just after the wing, and then I think that's about it really, and then you just join the rear section together. Yeah, so let's have a look. Former 1, sacrificial rear former, it says there. hopefully should be fairly straightforward. So first job then is we've got to get the wings out, trim those ailerons off, which will become obvious I think when we get the wings out, and then we've got to glue the leading and trailing edges into, or sub-trailing edges as it says here, into position and just let those dry with some masking tape. So let's get these wing panels out and see what we're working with. Move this out of the way. So that's going to be the left-hand wing, pretty sure. Yeah, they're not symmetrical, so you can see from the profile there that's got to be the left-hand one. And as you can see there, that's how the ailerons cut. So I guess we've got to make a cut down here to release the aileron, and I think this bit we just discard that essentially. And it's nice foam actually, it's sort of a black foam core, and as you can hear it's kind of quite a stiff, dense foam. Certainly a lot nicer than the foam wings I used to make myself years ago, which were just out of sort of standard polystyrene. Okay, so I've just used my square on the trailing edge of this aileron just to put a mark down there, and that's where we're going to make the first cut. And at first I was sort of thinking, obviously if you cut this piece out, which is like the sacrificial piece in the wing, you're going to obviously have a big gap there, and I wonder what happens, because if this bit is the aileron, how do you fill that gap? Of course you've got the trailing edge to glue on and the leading edge. There is a leading edge on the aileron as well, so that will fill that gap out basically. So that's all fine. So let's make a start. Let's cut this aileron off. Okay, there we are. Have ourselves an aileron. That's the left hand. I've marked these up as well, left and right, so I know which is which. I'll just get rid of this piece. So we can throw that bit away. And I'll just get my sanding block and just make sure that's nice and square. And I'll do the same with the end of the aileron as well, just to be sure. And then, like I say, I'll just get my permagrip blocks. I know this is nice and square, and we'll just square these off. Also says to just square the leading edge of the aileron and the trailing edge of the wing as well with a block, because these have been cut with a bandsaw, so it just says just to do that, just to ensure it's nice and straight. Should be all it needs. Okay, good. I'll just go over these with some 120 here. I just made up these little sanding sticks, by the way, from some spare sandpaper I had, and then some of this contact adhesive. Works really well. So I've just got a little one like this, and then a great big one like that, which is going to be nice and handy. I've got 120 on one side and 80 on the other. So that's that done. So next is to dig out the leading and trailing edges then and get those glued in place. 6x12mm bolts are leading edge and 3x12 sub-trailing edge, and then we've got 6x12 bolts for the aileron leading edge. Okay, so I think we'll get those. So we've got leading edge to glue on, trailing edge to, or sub-trailing edge, and then we've also got the leading edge of the aileron to glue on. So that's going to be my next task. Okay, so I've dug out the bolster from the stock that we need. Now with this you do get this sort of packing list, which is quite useful to refer to, and it gives you a list of all the bits, and it gives you sort of a diagram of all the cutouts, so that's quite handy. And I did at very first glance sort of pulled this out and I thought, oh well, that'll be the leading edge, and that's 6x12, but then offered it up and of course it's a bit small. So then I was thinking, oh, maybe you have to glue two bits together. That doesn't seem right. So just check the packing list, and there's a 415mm piece and a 500mm piece. So obviously the 500 one's slightly longer, and that just goes right across the leading edge like that. So that's going to be spot on. So we'll just use some PVA glue to do this. So we'll put the glue on the wing, I think. I think my glue's a little bit blocked up. Okay, let's just give that a wipe. We know we've got it well covered. Always got some kitchen roll to hand. And then what I like to do is put this on and then sort of slide it backwards and forwards, and it tends to sort of stick then as all the air sort of comes out. And then we'll get the old masking tape. Make sure obviously we've got both ends overhanging, so we've got plenty of there to work with when we come to cut it down. Okay, let's get a piece of tape on in the middle. And we'll get some on the end there. Make sure it's well pressed down. And the same at the root. Might just put a little bit, squeeze more in there. Okay, and then we'll just make sure that we've got it lined up. We'll just look down it and just make sure we've got it overlapping both sides, which it is. So then we'll get a few more pieces of tape on just to really make sure it's nice and solid. Right, that's got that fastened down. So I'll get the same done for the trailing edge and also the leading edge of these ailerons, and then I'll show you the result. Okay, well that's it, all done. So I'm going to leave this overnight now. There's a lot of masking tape there, so don't want to mess around with it now. Just going to leave it there, let that glue overnight, and then we can trim it off and get it all, the leading edges shaped, which I always enjoy doing with the razor plane. That's going to be the next job. The other thing I've done is it does say like an extra thing in the instructions, which you don't have to do, but there's a little bit of 3mm by 3mm balsa strips applied in the kit, which it doesn't show you how to, it doesn't mention it too much in the instructions, but it does say if you want to put it on the trailing edges of the wing root and also the ailerons, you can do, but you obviously have to trim 3mm off. Now, I'm not going to bother with the ailerons because they're quite nice as they are really, but this is really, because it's only a small section, it's really quite flimsy, so I've decided to glue that piece on, but it is just a tiny piece, and of course once it's sanded down it's going to be pretty fragile anyway, but it should hopefully just give that a bit of extra strength. So yeah, there we go. I'll show you once it's dried. Right then, so it's the next day and everything's dried, really nice and solid, so that's all good. So next job is I've got to take my razor saw and just trim these off, so square with the ends of each surface, and obviously the same on the wing. And then one of my favourite tools is the good old razor plane. So we've got to get the razor plane, and then the trailing edges is fairly straightforward. In fact, probably don't even need the razor plane on there because it's almost flush with the wing anyway, but just got to sand that flush, and then with this just sort of get the razor plane. You got to be careful with this veneer. I remember doing this from years ago, that you don't catch the veneer with the razor plane because you can put a nasty dent in it. But essentially we've got to profile this down to the shape of the wing and put a nice little sort of bull nose finish on it as well. So yeah, that's what I've got to do. So I'm going to get started by chopping the ends off. Okay, that's that one done. Whoa! All chopped down to size. So now we've just got to get the profiling done. So I'll just put that one to one side, and then the aileron, just got to do the same with that. So obviously cut the end to size there, and then sand that flush, and then we just got to put a bevel on it, so it can move when we've got it attached to the wing. So let's just get that one cut to size. So what I'm doing is just getting the razor saw up against the actual aileron, so you sort of keep that, it's nice and square basically. So let's start with the wing then. Let's get the razor plane on this and just do a couple of slow passes. Like I say, don't want to dig into the veneer, so not going to go down too low with this. Okay, there's that wing done with the razor plane. I did catch it slightly on the underneath there, as you can see, which it just happens. It's quite difficult to not do it sometimes, but that's not a problem. All I'll do is just sand that down and just put a little bit of lightweight filler in, and it'll be absolutely fine. So now really the razor plane is done on this wing, so I just need to get the sander out and just sand it nice and flush with the wing. And you can probably just see where there, when this decides to focus, there we go. I've just put a little profile on the end of that leading edge with the razor plane, and then I'll finish that off to a nice sort of bull nose with the sanding block. So I'm going to go outside and do that, and then I'll get the other wing done and I'll show you the results. Okay, so we got all that done. I've been outside to do a bit of the sanding, so got that nicely profiled off. It's a bit difficult to see because it's not focusing. I've got quite a nice sort of sharp bull nose on there. And obviously sanded all these bits down as well. Same with the ailerons, so got those profiled as well, so we've got plenty of room for movement there. So really nice, really pleased with that. And I'll tell you what, this sanding block that I made, it's a bit of a beast, but it's really good for doing something like this, because you can get right along the whole wing. I know these are quite small wings, but you can just block that whole area, and it really is easy to do, so pretty pleased with that. Next job is you just get this little strip in the kit, 1.5mm balsa, and this is to just face off these ends here at the root, where you cut the aileron from. And I think, although I'm not 100% clear in the instructions, it certainly says you put some on the tip as well of the aileron to strengthen that, but I'm going to put some on the root of the aileron as well, just to give that extra strength. I've got enough material there, so that's really the next job. Obviously it's a pretty simple one, just got to put this on here. So just put that on there and just cut that to size, and then same thing as the last clip, really, when I was gluing the leading and trailing edges on. Just got to get the PVA on and get some masking tape on that and kind of leave it overnight, really. And then once we've done that, we'll be moving on to the exciting bit, which is getting the big blocks of balsa to go on the wingtips, which is always good, and obviously carving those is going to be good fun as well. So yeah, 1.5mm balsa, here we go. Right, I've got the tips glued on to both wings, and looking at this you'd think I'd glued them on kind of the wrong way round, but that is definitely the way they go. So the swept in bit goes towards the leading edge of the wing, and the big thick bit at the back goes towards the trailing edge. And then what I've done with this one, I've just temporarily taped the aileron on, so that gives me the profile there that I need to shape this block to. So I'm going to get the razor plane out again, and this is going to need a real good shaping to get that profile right. And so then once I've done that, I'll then just trim it to size, so the back of the aileron is sort of, it's kind of level with where that is. So it's time to get the razor plane out. Okay, well you can see I've got a huge big pile of balsa shavings there, and it's amazing how quickly, I know I've speeded that video up, but that literally only took a few minutes to whittle that big block of balsa down to this nice shape. Razor plane is just superb. Cuts, you have to be quite careful because it's amazing how quickly it does cut through the balsa, and obviously you don't want to start planing the top of the wing off, but as you can see there, that's really starting to develop a nice shape. Looking good, so it just needs a little bit of finishing off with some more sandpaper, but I'll do that off camera, and I'll get the other one done exactly the same way. So I'll tape the aileron on there and just get that one shaped up. And I think that really was going to bring this particular video to a close. In the next video, in episode 2 of this blob build, what I've decided to do, I think I said at the beginning of this video that I was going to just use a single servo for the aileron in the middle and with some torque rods, but I'm actually not going to bother, I've decided, because I've got some little servos. I've just got some spare Metal Gear digital Emax servos hanging around that I didn't realise I'd got. So I'm actually just going to put those in the middle of the wing and then just use the push rods that are supplied in the kit, which will normally connect to the torque rods, to fasten up to the control horns, and then I'll just drill a hole through the core to the recess where the servo is for the cable to come down. So yeah, I think that's probably a better option than using the torque rod. I think actually it's going to be easier to do, believe it or not, and because these are nice small servos, I've not got that much material to cut away. So if you're enjoying this, then hit the subscribe button and hit the bell button, then you'll be notified when I bring out episode 2. I'd really appreciate it if you could help me out by hitting the thumbs up button as well and giving me a like. And obviously, as I said, if you could subscribe, that'd be fantastic. That would really help me out, and I'd really appreciate that. And of course, thank you to everyone who is currently subscribed, and I'll see you soon for the next one.